Welcome into the Nashville Game Changers podcast. I'm your host, Jill Jelnick. The Tennessee Titans are quickly approaching their 30-year anniversary of moving here to Tennessee. It's gone by very quick, and obviously the franchise with a long, storied history here in Nashville, but it wouldn't be what it is today without the amazing writers that helped document every step of the way for the franchise. And I'm so excited to have one of the sports writers from day one, first day with the Tennessee Titans, senior editor and writer for TennesseeTitans.com, Jim Wyatt. Jim, thank you so much for joining the show.
Jill, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. When you think of Nashville Game Changers, people that have been here, that have not only witnessed history, but have been a part of it, you and Titans are really synonymous when it comes to your journey together. And I'm so excited to obviously get your thoughts on the 2026 draft class. Head coach Robert Saleh, his first year, how things are going so far, what fans can expect in the fall. But before we get all into all of that stuff, the X's and O's, first, I want to talk about your journey here in Nashville. Father Ryan grad.
That's right.
Right? And you were at the Tennessean for, 25 plus
That's
years?
Right. That's correct.
Before you made the jump over to the Titans beat writer. And so I kind of just want to start with your journey. And did you always know that you wanted to be a sports writer?
I didn't, and it was quite a journey to get to the Titans, and certainly enjoyed every part of the journey to get here. I did grow up in Nashville, Tennessee, born and raised here. Went to Christ the King and St. Henry's in parochial schools in grade school growing up. Then I went to Father Ryan High School, and I'm the son of a judge. And I think growing up, I always thought that maybe I'd want to get into law. That's what my father did. Went to Vanderbilt Law School. Quickly discovered that probably wasn't going to make it into law school. And I just kind of found my way. I started off at UT Martin, is where I initially went to college, and then I transferred to the University of Tennessee. I usually have a Vanderbilt visor on. People are always surprised, learning, you mean you didn't go to Vanderbilt? I said, no, Vanderbilt wouldn't have let me in. But I love my time at UT. I just have been a Vanderbilt fan my whole life, just because my dad went to Vandy Law School. And but I was a broadcast major, and I was actually a criminal justice major. Then I went into broadcasting. I eventually went into, I was finished as an English major at the University of Tennessee, and I didn't start writing for the school newspaper until my final semester. I was like, what am I going to do? I knew I liked sports. I knew I liked to write a little bit at that time. So wrote a couple of stories for the Daily Beacon, and then I graduated from Tennessee and began working full-time at a place called the Register of Deeds, which is where property deeds and mortgages and tax liens, all that were recorded. And I started working part-time at the Tennessean at night. I answered the phone. I took bowling scores and hole-in-ones and track and field and you name it. They sent me to cover every event you could think of when I worked there. And then after doing two jobs and working about 70 hours a week for probably, 6-7 years, I started working part-time at the Tennessean, and I started working full-time at the Tennessean in 1997, covering, high school sports primarily, and then news came that the Houston Oilers were looking to move to Nashville, and timing was perfect for me in my career. I was just kind of starting off and finding my way, and my sports editor approached me, I guess, before the 99 season, and asked if I'd be interested in covering the Titans and Predators. Jeff Legwold and Paul Kuharski were on the Titans beat at the time. John Glennon was on the Predators beat. And I said, yeah, I don't know about the salary cap, and I don't know. I've covered high school sports, and those guys kind of helped show me the way when I first started off. John Glennon and David Beauclair, who's covered the Predators forever, they taught me about hockey. And I just kind of found my way as the team moved to town, and then here we are. I watched the current stadium come up when I was walking across the bridge, working at the Register of Deeds in the courthouse, and now I'm going to see the stadium come down here in about another 6-7 months, however long that's going to be. So hard to believe the time has passed. I was fortunate that my career was kind of starting off as a team came here, and I covered the team from 99 to the summer of 2015 for the Tennessean, and now with the team since July of 2015. My first day on the job was the day Marcus Mariota officially signed his contract with the team.
You signed your contract with the team the same day, too.
Well, it's funny. I'd worked so hard when I was working at the Tennessee. It's a different job, and you just fight and claw and scratch to try to get any piece of news. And then the day I started, they kind of brought me in and said, "Hey, we want to bring you in so you can see this happen." and his agent was in there, Bruce Tollner. So, and now it's hard to believe from all the time that passed from 99 to 2015. I can't believe now I'm going to year 12 with the team.
Wow. That's when they say the rest is history, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I love how I've known you for 5 years. 5 years I've been here, and actually a little longer from when I was in Chattanooga. I first met you. It was just shortly after you made the transition from Tennessee into the Titans. But I love how in these first couple minutes, I've just learned several things about you that I didn't know. I didn't know you were the son of a judge.
Yes.
I don't think I actually realized that you you graduated from the University of Tennessee.
I did. People are shocked to hear that.
Yes. Well, you have always been such a supporter of Vanderbilt as well, right? And obviously, anyone in the state of Tennessee knows the history there, the rivalry. But knowing that your dad went to law school at Vanderbilt, it makes so much sense now.
Yes.
And then we have to throw in a curveball. Your Dodgers love and passion for the Dodgers. That was the first thing I noticed was your Dodgers hat. I was like, whoa. I haven't seen one of those since I was living in California 10 years ago. You also just became you were a Dodgers fan growing up. Is that right?
Yeah, my whole life. I got a lot of my sports teams from my dad.
Yeah.
I got the Bills of my own. I loved O.J. Simpson growing up. It's hard to say that now, but I watched O.J. play in the early 70s, became a Bills fan. But my dad went to Vanderbilt Law School, and he had me going to Vandy games from the time I was 7 years old. And so going to Vanderbilt football games, Vanderbilt basketball, went to a lot of Vandy baseball games as well, but just grew up watching Vandy. And so even though I went to UT, Vandy will always be my team. That was just in your blood at a young age. But and my grandfather liked the Brooklyn Dodgers. My dad became a Dodgers fan. He took me to see the Dodgers play when Garvey, Say, Lopes, and Russell were the infield back in the 70s. Been a Dodger fan my whole life. I did have a wonderful dad who was a judge for 43 years and had season tickets for all the Titans games. One of the things I certainly missed last year is my dad had seats in section 137, which is kind of to the right of where I sit in the press box. In every game, I used to kind of look out and kind of give a wave to him. Getting choked up even talking about that. But him and my mom used to sit down in those seats, and I think about all the memories covering the team. I think what I remember most is just having my parents there, and I'd kind of wave to them. It was sometimes tough to tie them up, when to wave. They'd look at me, I'd look at them, and we finally decided that when Johnny Cash's Folsom Prison song came on at the start of the fourth quarter, that was our cue to kind of identify each other. So we kind of wave at each other. I'd wave down for the press box. He waved back at me. He moved to the handicapped seats the last couple of years. I couldn't see him. I'd see him at the half, but he passed last August. He loved Vandy, loved the Dodgers, and he loved the Titans. And it was neat to see him at those games all those years.
I bet he also loved your journey as a sports writer. What were his initial thoughts when you kind of made that transition?
He loved it. I mean, it's my dad got around pretty good. He was a Marine. He was he was a police officer for a while. He worked in the FBI. He worked at the district attorney's office, and then he became a judge. And he got around. Went to a lot of horse tracks. Went to a lot of sporting events. But obviously, as he got older, he slowed down a little bit. So he always used to kid me about how he would kind of live his life through me. I'd call him from Pittsburgh and called him from Miami and from Baltimore and from the Super Bowls and different events, and he loved it. I mean, he loved sports. I used to have to do report cards and predictions in the newspaper back when I worked with the Tennessean. And again, he was a Titans fan, and my dad used to give me a hard time whenever I'd predict the Titans to lose a game, or when I'd give the coaches or the players an F on the report cards. He didn't like that part. He was always trying to influence me. They're not going to lose. He'd ask me, like on Thursday, I think the picks had to be in the paper on Friday. He'd ask me what I thought. I said, Dad, I think they're going to they're gonna lose this game this week. He tried to get me to change my prediction because he didn't like for me to pick against the Titans because if he'd catch a lot of. It turns out he would catch a lot of grief from his friends whenever I'd pick against him, and then if I got it wrong, they'd all tease him. So, but he loved my job. Like he loved that I was a sports writer. I have a brother that went to law school, and so he got closer to following in my dad's footsteps than I did. But my dad did like my career path, and had so much fun hearing about my travels and things that were going on covering the team.
When you first started covering the Tennessee Titans of that 99 season, what were some of the things that stood out to you remember the most when it came to that transition and essentially their welcoming to the state and Nashville?
Yeah, it was unbelievable because, again, I was covering high school sports all the way up until 1998, and then I got on the Titans beat and initially said, okay, Jim, you're going to cover the Titans, you cover the Preds, you're going to do kind of half and half. And then right out of the gate, the Titans became extremely popular with the fan base. And so went from me covering what I thought was going to be half the games that year to me covering every game that year because the team was rolling, fans were fired up about them. It was incredible just to see, Steve McNair and Eddie George, Javon Curse, and some of these players who were not just big recognizable faces in Nashville, but across the league. And so that team got on a roll, and it was hard to believe I was a part of it. And then the team, obviously the Music City Miracle, never forget that. I stayed in my seat in the press box. I know some people were on the field for that finish. Some people were in the staircase going down from the press box and missed it. I know a lot of people who have told me after the fact that they didn't see that play happen because they left after they thought the team had lost. So to go from there and then go to Indianapolis to win, never forget that. Then go to Jacksonville, and I'm thinking, again, this is my first year covering the team, and thinking that's just hard to believe that I'm a part of this run. And then going to the Super Bowl, my dad used to kid me again. I went from the Clinic Bowl to the Super Bowl in 1 year, and so it was quite a run. And then it almost spoils you. You think, okay, well, you can go back again next year, and discovered pretty quickly that there are no guarantees in the NFL, but that was the year that the Titans were on the map in the league, and I think that's when this fan base really embraced this team, and I have such great memories of just my first year covering the team, and again, hard to believe now we're heading into 2026.
Yeah, man, crazy that introduction to Nashville, right? The fans, what they witnessed that 99 season, 2000 year, and like you said, after such a historic season, you're like, oh, we're gonna keep coming back. We'll be back. This is what it's gonna be like. And it shows you how difficult it is to get that. Only two teams get to that final game at the end of the season, and it takes so much to get there. Going back to that Music City Miracle, you said you watched it from your press box. As you were seeing that play unfold, what was going through your mind, or before that play even unfolded, what was going through your mind?
Well, it was. That's the point when you're. This is again. I worked at the Tennessee at that time, and I was there with David Clymer, our great sports columnist at that time, and Jeff Legwald and Kuharski and myself. We probably had 10 people at the game for the Tennessean. That's when the Tennessean had a huge sports staff, and so we're all huddling up. Okay, you're going to write about this. You're going to write about this, and some of the writers are already going down to the field. You're pretty much just getting yourself in the right headspace you're going to Bill's locker room, you're going to Titans locker room. No one was thinking you're writing a story about the miracle or about the Titans winning. It was pretty much the great run was over. And so that was kind of my thought process. And then I saw that play unfold and saw the crowd going crazy. And I remember, this is before you had your phone, and fans could look at their phone and see a replay. Oh, that's a forward lateral. It's a backward lateral or see what they're saying on Twitter. Like, people were turning around that's sitting right below me asking what the replay show, because we had television cameras just above our heads, and it was hard to even tell them. But I remember the broadcasters talking about it, and then pandemonium once they announced that the play was going to stand, and never seen anything like it. It was best play that I've ever witnessed as far as dramatics standpoint. And then never forget that locker room and just the wild scene of players, celebrating, and it was served as maybe a jump start for what was to come.
And you had to rewrite your story.
I did. I can't remember what pivot. I don't know what my initial story was supposed to be that day, but I think I wrote a couple of stories, and neither one of them went as planned. Like, we had to huddle again downstairs, and we had to find everybody. And I still have that newspaper print and see what everybody did. I should have brought it with me to see what everybody wrote that day, but certainly a memorable day.
You're listening to the Nashville Game Changers podcast with Tennessee Titans senior writer and editor Jim Wyatt. We'll be right back after this. I know you have, I'm sure, a plethora of wonderful memories from that era, obviously, and from this past decade. I actually want to ask you, you have a great profile picture with Mr. Eddie George. You're rocking your Dodgers blue hat, and he has his arm around you. And I've always been curious, that memory, that conversation, and also how great that someone was able to capture that moment with you. But what was your relationship like with Eddie? How was it covering him in his era?
It was great. Yeah, I remember walking off the field that day talking to him. I didn't dream anybody had shot that. Mike Strasinger, who is a photographer, has been around here for a long time. I used to see him at high school games coming all the time. He happened to see me walking off the field with Eddie, and he shot that picture, and I made that my Twitter profile pic. I've got that also in a frame at my house. Great memories with Eddie. I mean, he was always such a stand-up guy, always played, always practiced. I'll never forget the Fridays before big games. Eddie would just start pacing on the field, and you could tell he was just locked in to what was coming up. And he's turned out to be such a great ambassador for the team and everything that he's done. I'll never forget. I remember watched every one of Eddie's games, but also the day that he was going to be released for the team. And this is the kind of stuff you have to do when you're working at the Tennessee. And the day he was released by the team, when he's getting cut, when you're working at the Tennessee and your team's beat writer, the expectation is you're going to have Eddie George quoted in the next day's paper about his feelings about why he was let go. I mean, he was, again, the face of the franchise at that time, and there was no such thing as texting back then, so I had Eddie's number. At least I thought I had Eddie's number. It was his number, but he wasn't in a headspace to really want to talk, so I called him over and over again. He wasn't going to pick up, so my bosses didn't want to hear that Eddie George was getting cut, and we didn't have a reaction from Eddie George, so I knew where he lived. He lived over on Tyne Boulevard, and it was about 8 o'clock at night, and I told my wife, I said, I'm going to Eddie George's house to see if I can get a reaction from him. He wasn't answering the phone, and again, I got it. It was a hard day for him. He'd been with the team, for so many years, and now he was getting let go, so I knocked on his back door. It was dark, and his wife came in the door. I told her who I was, and I think she probably wanted to hit me upside the head for having the nerve to come and knock on their door on the night when he had been cut. And she said, he's down in the basement. He's not in any mood to talk. And I said, just tell him it's Jim Wyatt. I just was hoping to get a couple of minutes with him. This is a big story. And so she left. I figured she'd come back and say he didn't want to do it. And instead, he walked out, had his Ohio State slippers on. He had his little bulldog with him, and we stood in his driveway and probably talked for 15, 20 minutes. He was emotional just about leaving the team. And so just I remember him being a stand-up guy, and that includes that night. And then, in the years that have passed, I always see him when he comes back. His son played for Vanderbilt for a short time. He used to sit about 3 or 4 rows in front of me when his son played there, and he'd always stop and talk to my dad, who I sat next to, and every time I see him, he always asks me, how my father was doing. So that's just kind of the guy he is, and it's been really neat to see him have the success he's had after his career ended, and but he's a leader of men. I mean, he's a guy that people believe in, and that's why I think he's going to be successful in anything he does.
Anything he does, and he's still so much a face of the franchise, right? So a Titans legend, and the fan base sees him as that as well. It's so interesting how I got into sports, not only just because I love sports, but when it came to the writing aspect or the broadcasting aspect, reporting, I loved how positive sports was, right? On a bad day, most days, the worst thing is a loss for your team. And I loved that most of the time I was telling positive stories and making a positive difference, right? But you forget that there are so many low points and so many tough parts about sports to cover. Whether it is a star player getting cut, someone that you've created a relationship with over the years, and then the other end of the spectrum, right? Someone passes away, and I immediately think of Steve McNair and how difficult that must have been for not just the community, but the writers and the reporters that had covered him from day one.
Yeah, that was certain days always stick in your mind where you were, what you were doing when you found out news. But I was at the Brentwood YMCA on July 4th with my family. I was with my wife, my 2 kids at the time. They were probably, they were, 5, 8 years old, somewhere in that range. And I got a call from someone telling me they'd heard that Steve McNair had been shot and killed. And when you're beat writer for a team, you hear all kinds of rumors, and heard a lot of them that never panned out. And I was hoping this one wasn't going to pan out, but we got that call, but it was from somebody that I believed. So I felt like we needed to pack up and go. So we went home, and I obviously needed a couple of different sources on a story like that. So my first call was to Jeff Fisher, who was on a tour overseas with military. It's kind of a football. I think we called it the USO tour, maybe what they called it back then. He wasn't reachable at the time. I talked to Mike Heimerdinger. He had not heard. Called several players. They had not heard, and then I was able to get a hold of one of Steve's close friends who told me it was true, and then I found another third source that was true, and that's when that became a reality, I guess. I think that news initially got out from maybe the fire department had a scanner, and that's how the initial story broke, and then other news agencies started to pick up on it. But once I found out it's true, I wrote that story, and then the next week it was just. I remember having a office at my home that had glass over, and I pretty much put sheets over the front of it because I was locked in. And for a week, I was in that office just tracking down stories about Steve, all the events surrounding it. Went into reporter mode, covered the funeral, covered too many funerals. Certainly in my time, working for the Titans, whether it's Steve McNair, Rob Baronis, Mike Heimerdinger, Bud Adams, so many players, Josh Evans, so many players that have passed over the years that hard to believe. I think probably I've had a tally at one point where it was at least 15 Titans over the years had passed since the time the team first came to Tennessee. It's hard to believe.
How long did it take for his death to actually sink in?
It's still hard for me to believe. I mean, certainly when you're working it, everything's just kind of a blur. But I think it was maybe after about a week when they'd had the funeral. They had a funeral and celebration of life here in Nashville, and they had another funeral down in Mississippi. And I think once all that transpired, I think that's when reality hit that what had happened. Steve was such a good guy. Like I talked with Eddie about what a good guy he always was. Steve was the same way. I mean, it was a different time in the league where quarterbacks were a lot more accessible. Steve talked at his locker every single day. You had football camps for kids in town. He was great about stopping and signing autographs for kids, but he was a character too. And but he, not kidding, he talked on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Sometimes you have to wait an hour for him to get treatment before he'd come out. Sometimes if you stood too close to him as he got dressed, he would get his right guard spray out and he'd spray under his arms, and he intentionally would miss and spray everybody that was standing behind him just to kind of get him to back up a little bit.
Okay, so that's a key strategy there.
That was the strategy that worked for him, but everybody got it. I mean, it kind of became a little bit of a joke. That was when you knew you were a little too close. Let the man dress. But have good memories of Steve. Just certainly sad to see his life end so soon.
Stay with us. You're listening to the Nashville Game Changers podcast with Tennessee Titans senior writer and editor Jim Wyatt. We'll be right back after this. A new regime for the Tennessee Titans this season. Robert Saleh got hired earlier this year and quickly put together a staff that is very exciting. A lot of experience, previous head coaching experience, Brian Dable, offensive coordinator. So many exciting parts when it comes to this new era for the Tennessee Titans. How about this? What excites you the most?
Yeah, I think there's so much new. I mean, it's hard to decide what excites you the most because we've got a new coaching staff, got a new logo, new uniform,
that's right.
New
look.
New players getting ready to move into a new stadium. There's so much optimism and I think reasons to feel like things are changing here. I think what should have fans feeling the best is they've got a GM in Mike Berganzi that knows what he's doing. He's a tireless worker. He's all about putting in the work and identifying the right players. And Robert Saleh, I think his temperament and his mindset, I think they're a perfect match for one another. And there's been a lot of transition around this team over the last 3 or 4 years, ever since, I guess things started kind of going the opposite direction in the middle of the 2022 season. And then 23, 24, 25, some long years for the Titans and a lot of moving parts in the front office, coaching staff, team. I feel like for the first time in a while that the team's in a good place and got good leaders in the front office, a good head coach who has assembled a staff that has experienced coordinators and has a team that is adding more from a talent perspective and is getting better. So for the first time in a while, I'm optimistic about the direction things are going. And I'm not saying I'm predicting a Super Bowl run this year, but
what are you saying, Jim? Super Bowl or bust? Yeah.
but I would think the 3 and 14 days are behind us.
Yeah.
And hopefully you'll get 3 wins by the time September ends. If not, by the time October ends. I mean, you're fighting for 3 and 4 wins all the way to the end. Some of these last couple of years, hopefully these days are behind you. Yeah,
the division's not getting any easier. That's for sure. And I think stability is something the franchise has missed and has been craving the last several years, right? With all the tumultuous change and capriciousness. But it does have the feeling, whether it is the new and all the new things, right, that go along with the new head coach, the optimism, the feeling, the spirit, there is definitely an air around that facility and around the team that is exciting going to 2026. And now you have a brand new draft class with a lot of exciting talent, including a number 4 overall pick, Carnell Tate, the highest the Titans have ever taken a wide receiver in the modern draft era. You always do you always ask the media, who will the Titans pick? And correct me if I'm wrong, only one person had Carnell Tate going to the Titans. Is that right?
Chris Johnson.
Okay.
Chris Johnson of
CJ? You know
CJ.
where he went to school.
East Carolina. He's an East Carolina guy like
former Pirates.
Yes.
Us former Pirates, man, we're just ahead of the game sometimes. We have to take credit. Good for him.
Good for him. Yeah, so he's of the Smash and Dash podcast, and so I include like media, I guess celebrities, former players.
Yeah. Didn't you ask Jelly Roll too?
Jelly Roll's in there, Nate Bargatze. But Chris Johnson is the only one that picked Carnell Tate. So I sent him a little text afterward, and he was very proud of that. I heard he's been bragging on it a little bit. So I think majority of the people had Jeremiah Love in there. If there were 160, I bet they're tallied. I think there's probably 110 had Love. Tate kind of came out of nowhere, but and Jeremiah Love would have been an exciting pick, certainly. But I think you have to, and like Mike Bergonzi and his group kind of anticipated this was going to happen. The next plan A might have been Jeremiah Love. I don't know that the GM would ever come out and say that. But,
we may never know, but
but plan B was Carnell Tate, and based on how things fell, I think it was between Tate and probably Orville Reese and some other guys in the mix. But I just think with Tate, they knew exactly what they wanted to use him, what he was about, needed to get weapons for Cam, and there've been some years here where fans have been pleading for this team to get help at receiver, and now. I think they've got a receiver group with Tate in the mix and Ridley and Wandale Robinson and Jim DK and Alec Iomanner. That's a good start. That's a good fivesome to start off with. We'll see if there's a sixth on this roster, but Cam should help Cam moving forward. And I like Tate. I mean, I think he's going to be a playmaker for this team.
I like talking to him. He was on our podcast last week with Keldrick Falk, who also moved up into that first round for the Titans. Titans having two first-round picks, first time since 2019. Is that right? It's been a while.
Yeah, since Adoree Jackson and Corey Davis were on the team, and so it's exciting to have two picks. I have a funny story. I'll go to the draft every year, and I was up there with Jared Puffer and Jesse Raj, our photographer. We had some other people that were on that trip, and we always go to the draft city couple of days. I always go a couple of days before.
Interview everybody.
Interview players, and then you're there for the pick, and then the plan is to fly back with the pick and on the team plane the next day. So with Carnell Tate as the pick, I knew there'd be plenty of room on the plane. I think you get the player is on there obviously, and then he gets to pick 4 or 5 people to come with him. It's not a huge plane. So the plan was to come back on a plane with Carnell Tate on Friday morning after the draft, and then get to be about pick 29, 30. We're about to pack up and leave Pittsburgh, and we get word that we're trading back in to pick Keldrick Falk, which I thought was great for the team, but it was bad for me because it bumped me off of the team flight. All of a sudden, he got his seat and 4 or 5 people with him, and I went from being on the team plane that would have left about Pittsburgh about 10 a.m. and was on a 5 a.m. Southwest out of Pittsburgh. So I didn't even go to sleep that night. I had to write that story. Left the draft, grabbed a couple of pieces of pizza with the crew that was up there, then got my bags out of the Pittsburgh Drury Inn and headed straight for the airport. So I was glad to see Keldrick come aboard, although it knocked me off board of that flight.
Oh, that is so funny. That is so. First thought, this is a great pick for the team. Second thought, oh no, I better get on Southwest.com right now. Yes. Does Keldrick know that he kicked you off the plane?
I think maybe word got to him. I'm glad he needed to be on that flight more than I did. Yeah,
that's a great story though. That's a really good story. Obviously very excited about those 2 first-round picks. And then after that, who might be another pick for the Titans from this draft class that has gotten a little overshadowed, and maybe fans want to keep their eye on for this season?
Yeah, a couple of them, and I've got my little draft roster right here looking at it. I've got this time of year when you've got so many new players. You got your roster. I've got the numerical roster. I've even got my rookie tryout that has my 58 tryout players on there from last week. But there's so many names, so many people now. But I think Anthony Hill, the running back out of Penn State. I'm sorry, Anthony Hill, the linebacker out of Texas. That's such a fierce competitor and such a tackling machine who can also, get after the quarterback if you ask him to. I think he's going to be an instant
game changer.
Game changer for this team. He's one of them. And then I got Penn State on my mind because I think Nick Singleton, the running back out of Penn State, who is extremely productive in college, 5,000 all-purpose yards. He can run the football. He can catch out of the backfield. He return kicks. Titans obviously have a kick return in Jim Dake, but I think he has potential to really be good, and it's going to make competition in camp interesting. I think with Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears, that's a pretty good twosome, but Singleton is something to watch. And then a couple of wild cards are Coogan and Carmona, the two interior linemen.
Yeah, that was a big area of need.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's scary to think that that you could have two rookie starters on the offensive line. I personally, sitting here in early May, don't think that'll be the case. I think one of them could potentially win the job, and then and be paired with a veteran who is already on the roster. I'd put my money on Slotman at this point, but we'll see how that plays out. But I think those are two really solid offensive linemen who will develop for this team and will be starters for years to come, if it's not in week one.
Yeah, well, and if the last couple of years have told us anything, that offensive line depth comes in handy with that long season, and you're always going to need someone to step up at some point. So it's great that the Titans were able to address that with both Coogan and Carmona.
Yes.
Excited to see them. We got a little bit of a look at them in rookie mini camp. A little bit.
Very little, yeah.
but enough for me to get my B-roll. I was like, okay, got him, Carmona, boom, offensive line, get everybody. Okay, I have at least a minute. Check.
Yes.
Okay, I'm good for at least a week.
But we'll see plenty of those guys. I know people are frustrated we didn't see more of the draft picks out of week one, but I've also been around, again, seen a lot. I've seen draft picks tweak a hammy right out of the gate, and then it changes their whole offseason program. Yeah. So they did their work on the side. Got to see a lot of other guys on there out there competing. We'll see these guys plenty in the weeks and months to come, and hopefully years to come.
Yeah, I hope it feels like this is a team this year. The new regime, the players, even the veterans. Veterans coming back. Big Jeff really taking a step forward last year too, right? And it feels like this is a team and a franchise headed in the right direction. And there's so much passion, time, effort from so many different areas, right? Not just the front office, not just the coaching staff, but everybody behind the scenes. It really takes everyone. And I think I've only covered this team for 5 years compared to your several decades. But one of my first seasons, Jim, was actually one of my first assignments was the 2022 NFL draft.
Okay.
And I remember going live at in Germantown, and I was about to do my hit. Oh yeah, Titans, here's their picks for the night, blah, 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 blah. They weren't supposed to pick till later. And sure enough, on the TV right in front of me was the breaking news and the trade with A.J. Brown. And it threw me off so much. And I remember thinking, I was solely worried about my live shot. I was like, I got to report this. I got to credit this. Who's the source? Blah, blah, blah. It didn't hit me until later that year, like a year later, how much of an impact that made on this franchise. And I bring it up because you mentioned, this is a team that has experienced a lot of transition. I pinpoint it back to that moment because it feels like since then, this team has been trying to find its direction, and I feel like now is in a better place than it has been the last several years. Am I crazy?
No, I think so. I mean, I think that happening on the heels of what happened in the playoffs in 2021 when this team was the number 1 seed in the AFC and should have been a Super Bowl winner, to be honest with you. There's several teams that I look back at from covering the team. 99 was one of them. I think 2000, I didn't mention earlier, I think 2000 team was actually better than the 99 team. But the 99 team, the 2008 team, and the 2021 Titans teams were the best team opportunities for a Super Bowl in this city. And to lose that year the way they did, and then that team kind of started to dismantle with A.J. Brown getting traded. And then the wheels have certainly come off since for a number of reasons. But, yeah, team kind of lost its moxie a little bit and lost its swagger when you lose playmakers like that. And Traylon Burks was put in a tough spot when he came in here. I'll never forget that draft either. That was in Vegas, and player – obviously, Traylon wasn't at the draft. AJ was gone, and team's been searching for playmakers ever since. So Carnell Tate is not going to be the next AJ Brown. I'm not going to put that on him, but I think he's got a chance to bring a little bit of swagger back to this receiving core.
I like that. Yeah, bring a little bit of swagger. I think he'd be up for that challenge too.
Yes.
Yeah. Jim, before we let you go, let's finish with our In My Opinion segment. I know, obviously, as a beat writer, you have plenty of opinions, but this can be free range, whatever you want. Doesn't even need to be about football. What's been on your mind lately?
Yeah, I think on my mind, not just lately, but just growing up, we've talked about, well documented me being a Nashvilleian, born and raised here. So I guess I've seen this city change a lot over the years. You know, I went to Father Ryan when Father Ryan was on Elliston Place, where Martin's Barbecue sits right now, and I think there's some Rotiers used to be over there. That whole area has been transformed. Downtown's been transformed. There's so many different parts, and I always see, you know, on social media or Facebook, people talking about wishing for old Nashville, and old Nashville was great. Believe me, I love Nashville the way it was when I was growing up, but new Nashville is pretty spectacular too. So my opinion is I welcome all the changes in Nashville. The Broadway, you've got the
honky tonks,
you've got the honky tonks and the pedal taverns and the woo girls and some people don't like that. Mm-hmm. Yes, traffic is worse now because of it. Unfortunately, comes a little bit more crime that we've had and some other things happen. But I think the positives greatly outweigh the negatives, and it's been so cool in Nashville to see East Bank transform like it has. The Nations has transformed like it has. 12th South area has been incredible.
Too.
The Gulch, Germantown, and we used to walk out my door at the Tennessean on Broadway, which no longer exists, and was, you know, had to race to my car before I'd get mugged some nights. So now that you look at that area, and it's great. So I love New Nashville, and even though it has some negatives with it, love the entertainment, loving new stadiums coming up.
Yep, that's
loving
right.
all the entertainment districts, and I welcome the Californians coming too.
Thank you.
Because a lot of them may be Dodger fans. So
there we go. I won't give you crap for that. That's for sure. Yes. No. I love that opinion. No one has taken that opinion, and the new Nashville over old Nashville is, you know, whether that's the more popular or unpopular opinion, I have no idea. But I think you have the experience, the veteran experience to have that opinion.
Now, Joe Dubin probably would disagree with me. He even wrote a book about the old Nashville.
Yes,
and
he did.
He doesn't like all the pedal taverns. And Joe certainly grew up here as well. He went to McGavick High School. I went to Ryan. But
that's okay.
I'm of the opinion the positives outweigh the negatives.
Joe Dubin, Joe is a Nashville Game Changer as well, and love Joe. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that he is his own thing, and we are grateful for it, but you can have your own opinion too. Jim, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for all of your wonderful storytelling, reporting, and the impact you've had, not just on the Titans community, but on the city of Nashville. The city is so much better because you are in it and you have been here from the very beginning. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for being a Nashville Game Changer.
Okay, thank you, Jill.
Thanks so much for listening to the Nashville Game Changers podcast. Be sure to tune in next week for our new guest. And as always, be sure to check us out on social media and YouTube. And when you're there, please like and subscribe.